I purposely
What
wanted
was
to
there? Wasn't the old
a
city
little
hall there?
longer because
No, that was across the parking lot
No, 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 no. back with
Everyone,
Ty Garcia. I gotta tell you, don't ever do shoulder therapy if you can avoid it.
good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The time is now 7:30. This is the regular council meeting for September 13th. Clerk, can you please do a roll call? Sorry.
Councilman Bliss,
I'm here.
Councilwoman Clark, Councilman Corbett,
Here.
Councilman Gettings,
Here.
Councilor Rohrbach,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tim Soltis,
Here.
and Mayor Grafstein.
I'm here, thank you. Can I please have a motion to excuse Councilwoman Clark? She did call in a short time ago.
Your Honor. So moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor. Support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against say no. Motion carries. Councilwoman Clark has been excused. Up first this evening, we have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Corbett. If you are able to stand, we ask that you do so now, please.
Infinite wisdom, we thank you for having given us the opportunity to meet together here today, and we ask most humbly for a blessing of our gathering. Brighten our eyes with greater understanding, enrich our hearts with compassion and courage, and again receive our gratitude for this opportunity of fellowship. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
All right, thank you. Can I please get a motion from council to appoint Annette Boucher as our acting city clerk for the
Your
evening?
Honor.
Mr. Bliss?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilman Corbett? All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Motion carries. Annette Boucher, it will be our acting city clerk for the evening. Next up, we have approval of the agenda. Is there anything that council wants to add or delete, additions or deletions? All right. Then first up is going to be a presentation, and this is going to be the Certificate of Appreciation in memory of Tony Bliss.
Council is scheduled to present a certificate of appreciation to the family of Anthony Tony Bliss, recognizing his dedication to the city of Madison Heights. Whereas it is sincere sympathy that City Council recognizes and honors the passing of Anthony Tony Bliss, father of Councilman Mark Bliss. And whereas Tony Bliss was born on August the 12th, 1960, and passed away on May the 19th, 2021, after a fulfilling life filled with family and friends. Tony was a member of the JCs, Knights of Columbus, the City Historical Commission, and the St. Vincent Ferrer Catholic Church. Whereas Tony was heavily involved in a myriad of civic activities and provide endless community support for the City of Madison Heights and Lanphier schools. And whereas Tony played an instrumental part in the community, volunteering for charitable groups that needed help and support. And whereas Tony Bliss led by an example, showing the community what it means to be a model citizen. And whereas Tony Bliss's presence in this community was immeasurable. In addition to the civic support, the smiles, the hugs, the warm words to the members of the community will always be remembered and appreciated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and city council extend heartfelt thanks to the memory and legacy of Anthony Tony Bliss for his lifetime of dedicated service, and extend this certificate as a symbol of appreciation for his civic-minded contributions to the city of Madison Heights. He will be missed.
Thank you. Councilman Bliss, is there anything you want to say?
You know, it's been a tough year. This appreciation, I don't know, it's kind of tough because I'm up here. And, normally I'd be in the audience and I'd be looking up and I wouldn't have to speak right away.
Sorry.
But, to have this presented by my peers and by city staff, to want to be able to honor my dad, it just means a lot. My dad, he was the loudest voice in any room. I can't keep up with that, But he used that and his stature and just his dynamic personality to make a real difference here. And he could have gone anywhere. He could have done anything, and he was extremely talented. He stayed here. This was where he wanted to make a difference. This is where he wanted to raise his family because he was raised here and he loved everything about this city. From when he was a teenager volunteering, from Lamb Fair to the Ushers Club at St. Vincent's, to his time all the way up to being a state vice president of the JCs, to the different city boards that he stayed on, to the Knights of Columbus. I mean, my dad gave almost 5 decades of service, not just to the community, but more so to the people in it, to make this place a little bit better with every single passing day. And, it's quite the legacy, and it's something that I strive every day to be able to live up to and honor his memory. And so I would just ask everybody here, do something that makes a difference for your neighbors. Do that in memory of my dad. He gave a community roundtable speech when he won the Volunteer of the Year, and in that speech, he talked, as he did most times, that the most important thing that you can do as a community volunteer and leader is to make sure somebody's there to take your place. And so I'm hoping that anybody who's watching this online or in the audience today is thinking, I can do that too. I can volunteer, I can be a part of this community, I can make this a little bit better than it was yesterday just by my actions. And I'm hoping that my dad's life of service inspires you to get involved, to give, to volunteer, to donate, to be charitable, to have a good heart. And there's no better place to do that than right here at home. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman Bliss. This is it. All right. Do you want to give this to your family?
Yes, please.
Okay. And I know the people at home aren't going to be able to see this, but everyone who's here for Tony Bliss, if you could just stand up for a second and be acknowledged, his family who's here. I know how much Mark Bliss has put into this city, and I know how much his family means to him. So on behalf of all of council and everyone in the city, I want to thank you for sharing him with us. Mark and Tony, thank you for sharing both of them with us. I don't know.
You are, but it won't pick up
It
on
won't
cable.
pick up. Yeah, I'm sorry, our microphones aren't that great, but please. Former Councilwoman Margene Scott.
Yes, former Councilwoman Margene Scott, 185, I gave my old address.
Don't worry about it.
1850 Castlewood. I really am feeling the loss of Tony. Martha and I were down in their rooms last week, and we saw evidence of Tony all around the room. And I know that I had talked to your wife and your daughter-in-law that we would like to honor Tony at the Historical museum and put a display out for him. If you don't mind sharing the showcase with my former husband, Jack Scott. They died within 3 weeks of each other, and they were both the same kind of person that we want to honor for our city. So please help me find some nice things to display in memory of Tony in the showcase when you enter the rooms. Thank you again, Mark.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. I appreciate that. All right. Next up is public hearing. So we've got A1, a special approval for 32800 Algier. It's a request to permit an auto wash in the B3 General Business District. Mrs. Marsh?
The applicant has requested special approval for an auto wash facility in the B3 General Business District under Section 10.326 of the zoning ordinance. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building and redevelop the site for an automatic car wash facility. The site is 1.76 acres used for the storage of cars for sale, with an existing building currently being used as an administrative office for a car dealership. The hours of operation being proposed are Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Should City Council consider approval of the following conditions should be included. General compliance with the review standards and criteria for review of special approvals listed in Section 10.201.4, and general standards for all City Council zoning-related decisions listed in Section 10.805. And the applicant shall work with the city's planning consultant to revise the lighting plan to comply with ordinance standards.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak regarding this specific property and this request, this would be your time. If you could come to the podium, your name, address, anything related to this. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Doug Falzon.
Sorry, Mr. Felsen, can you just lift the microphone?
sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine, thank you.
Better?
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't think I'd be too tall. My name is Doug Falzon. The business address is 411 West 13 Mile Road,
Okay.
Madison Heights. I am the applicant. I represent Mr. Wells. But the only thing I can say is that we work very hard to comply with all the ordinances. The building itself is in the middle of a commercial district. There's no residential use of any kind within probably a half a mile at least. So I think we're well located. The facility is all contained within the building, and I'm here to answer any questions if anything arises. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Falzon. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing and ask, what is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Corbett?
I move that the council grant special approval for an auto wash at 32800 Alger, subject to the two conditions that were cited in the report related to general compliance with review standards and criteria, as well as a revision of the light plan to comply with ordinance standards.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
I second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from council?
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett?
You know, that's the fifth time I have read that thing and going over it. Now, I got to ask, I just drew a blank. It says general compliance with review standards and criteria. What exactly, as a practical matter, does that mean? Does that mean it has to go back to one of the departments?
Our site plan review committee generally reviews all of that, so it's a team. Giles, who's in the back, who can elaborate on this, our planner, oftentimes the fire department, police department, and the building official. So it's an administrative type process.
Okay, the only thing that caught me off guard on the fifth read was, isn't that normally done prior to submission to either council, the planning commission, or the zoning board?
Yeah, that's the first step to the design process. When they submit their site plan, we administratively review it.
Okay. All right. Good, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, any other questions, comments from council? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Second for public hearings is a special approval for 21-05. It's 221 West Lincoln Avenue. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
The applicant has requested special approval for a private automotive repair in the P1 Vehicular Parking District and M1 Light Industrial District at 221 Lincoln Avenue under other uses of similar and no more objectionable character. The City Council should consider the attached specific review standards and criteria for review of special approvals and general standards for all City Council zoning-related decisions. The approval of a special approval should be based on the following conditions: general compliance with the review standards and criteria for review of special approvals listed in Section 10.201.4, and general standards for all City Council zoning-related decisions listed in Section 10.805. The applicant shall extend the shorter screen wall 2 feet by 10 inches to meet the height of the remaining wall, which is 7 feet 8 inches. The use should comply to the conditions noted in the applicant's cover letter dated August the 10th as listed below, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and Saturday, 8 to noon, and no vehicles shall be parked outside after business hours other than one drop-off location as noted on the site plan.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to open the meeting for public hearing for this specific property. So if you have a question or comment regarding 221 West Lincoln, this would be your opportunity to come and ask. Voice any concerns.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Porter. I live at 29234 Hillview in Roseville. I want to start off with saying my condolences, Mark. I'm asking for approval to use 221 West Lincoln Avenue, or 221 West Lincoln Avenue as my auto repair shop. I'm not your typical auto repair. I do a lot of aftermarket customizations. I do lift kits, bumpers. I am not open to the public. I do private. That's why I have the designated drop-off for vehicles that are dropped off after hours in the back. I take on about 5 vehicles at a time, no more. It's going to be me, and I have 1 employee. As far as there was mention about the wall, there's no changes to the building whatsoever. I was just doing changing the usage of the building from warehouse to now working out of. Do you know what the proposal was on the wall?
Just 1 second. Do you have
I'll
anything?
look it up unless.
So on page, within the special use request packet that council should have, it describes, under the review summary, the screen wall. So the property itself on Lincoln, it abuts a residential neighborhood. There is, I believe, a 6-foot wall that separates them with the alley there, and there's a part where that wall steps down. So the reference is just walling that off. It's just another measure to make sure it mitigates any nuisance to the adjacent community.
Okay.
I have a photo of it if
Yeah.
you want to actually see it. You can have this. It's just extending that wall. See how it's like 2 feet here, and then it just needs to be 7 feet, 10 inches all the way across.
Okay. I see. Is there a certain time frame that I could have to get that work done?
Timeframe.
That's something that we can work out, provided that we have special use approval today. So,
Okay.
yes.
Is there any other questions from anyone?
Not at this time, but the meeting's still open to the public, so if the residents have
Okay.
questions as it
So I've
comes
never
Give them a
had to do
minute.
any of this.
Give
I'm
the
nervous.
neighbors a
You
minute.
might want to come back up depending on the residents'
Okay.
questions.
Is there anything else you want to share with us, though?
I
No,
don't know.
that's fine.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
fine. There may be a question that only you can answer, so please have a seat, and we'll see if there's anyone else. All right,
My name's Brian Shishakli. I live at 25120 Culver in St. Clair Shores. I'm just here on behalf of Mr. Porter. If there's any questions related to the plan from any of you, and Councilman Bliss, to you and your family, I also extend my condolences, and I'll be taking that challenge to do something kind in my community with me tonight, so.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone else who has questions or comments regarding the Lincoln property?
I'm Martha Kehoe. I live at 1765 Dulong. I wanted to ask the city officials, are we still using our storage on DeQuinder for vehicles that's been in parks and boats and all that stuff?
So, Mrs. Kehoe, right now, this is just public hearing for this special approval on Lincoln.
I have no special, I'm just making a comment. Do we still have our storage on DeQuinder?
The city doesn't have storage on DeQuinder. We still have the RV lot at
Yes.
2 Ajax. We do still have that at the DPS lot.
I would like to bring it before the city council. Our city got more boats and more cars and more vehicles and driveways than the storage has. And I would like someone to check into that. I lived in the city for 66 years. I've never seen it like this. Everywhere you go, they got boats, they got tents, you know. I don't deprive people to have their recreation vehicles, but they should be used in the lot. And of course, believe me, the city can use the money, and I would appreciate this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kehoe. Is there anyone who has any questions or comments regarding 221 West Lincoln?
Jennifer Zmarzlik, 649 East Harwood. I'm on the DDA, if that matters, and if my opinion matters. I would love to have this business in that area. I live across the street and down the way, past that building all the time. I think it would be a great opportunity. A unique business is really interesting, too.
All right, thank you. Anyone else comment about the Lincoln property? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing and ask what is the wish of council.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Corbett?
I move to grant, council grant special approval for a private auto repair in the P1 vehicular parking district with the proviso that included are the recommendations of staff, which includes the review of standards and criteria, the extending of the shorter wall 2 to 10 feet to meet the height of the remaining wall. In addition, number 3, that the use permit will comply with the conditions noted Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon, and additionally, proviso that no vehicles shall be parked outside after business hours.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor, I'll
Councilor
support.
Roebuck? Thank you. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion among council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Sherman?
there's one exception that staff's recommending, which is the one drop-off location that's away from the residential area that's already proposed in the site plan. So if the maker of the motion is...
I'd be happy to incorporate that into my...
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Motion has been amended. All right, is there any other discussion among council? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Congratulations. That's been approved as well. Next up, we have meeting open to the public. This is the opportunity for the public to speak to mayor and council. Ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, that you identify yourself and any affiliation you have with the city. And if you're ready, you can just speak at the podium.
Hi, Martha Culver, Edward Avenue, member of the Crime Commission and resigning member of the HREC. I can no longer support the board. With the 3 people that were just appointed, there's no longer, there's 3 African Americans, 9 white, and it's This is it. That's not what our city is totally comprised of. Our city has so many other people. And I think if I leave, maybe then they'll put somebody else in that will help bring individuality to that commission. So I just wanted you to know that I'm stepping down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Covert. Thank you for your service to the board for the last year. Is there anyone else who has any public comment?
Hi, my name is Ernie Farron. I live on 635 West Girard Avenue in Madison Heights. Been there 29 years. My house, or my bedroom, is on the second floor, probably 100 yards from the dog pound. And there's been a problem with the dogs barking, and I know about 5 or 6 weeks ago, a dog was left out all weekend, just roof, 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 roof. And I called the police, and I talked to City Manager Marsh, I talked to Corey Haynes, the police chief, and it seemed like it was all supposed to be taken care of. But now it's September 3rd, there was a Friday, hound dog, coon dog, real loud, roof, 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 out all night again. And I called the police, and they're like, well, you know, it's a dog. And I'm like, it's 3 in the morning, this dog's barking like crazy, you know. So finally, Saturday morning, I got a hold of the police chief, and he says, well, there's nothing I can do. And I go, what do you mean? These animals are disturbing my peace. If it was my dog, and you called me up, I would put it in, take care of my dog. I don't know who's responsible for these dogs, but the people that are over there, they don't listen to the police chief, and they don't listen to Melissa Marsh. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I will look into this. This is the first I've heard about it, so I will look into it and find out what's going on with that.
Well, I'm sure the police chief can fill you in.
This is the first I've heard about it.
I've had numerous discussions with them about it, and I talked to Melissa about it too. Those people over there just don't listen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention, to my attention. I can look into it. Is there anyone else, public comment, anything? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. It's closed. All right. First up, then, we have bid awards purchases from the DPS director, the printing and mailing of the recreation brochure, then the city newsletter contract. Ms. Marsh?
Staff issued a bid for printing and mailing of the recreation newsletter brochure that was posted in City Hall and on Mitten Online Cooperative Bidding System and emailed to 151 bidders. 27 vendors downloaded the bid documents, and 3 vendors submitted electronic documents. The typical newsletter is 36 pages, and Printwell is the lowest qualified bidder based upon the pricing with postage at a unit price of 64 cents per newsletter, with an estimated extended price of $8,747, including the 2% runoff to be delivered to the DPS on Ajax Drive. Printwell is an established company that is a full-service mail producer and has a state-of-the-art digital print capabilities. Staff and I respectfully request that council award the contract for printing and mailing of the recreation brochure newsletter to Printwell at the unit prices indicated for a 2-year contract term, with option to extend thereafter upon written agreement of the parties, allowing for documented postage increases and also allowing for lower cost cold press production of a smaller brochure at the city's sole discretion.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
I move that we award the contract for printing and mailing of the recreation brochure/newsletter to Printwell, Inc. at the unit prices that were indicated for a 2-year contract term. I'd also like to include the option to extend after that 2 years with written agreement of the parties. That'll allow for documented postage increases and if we wanted to do a smaller brochure, correct?
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach?
Support.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor. I'm really pleased to see that the Recreation Department is getting ready to print brochures and send them out to everybody. I had heard from folks over the last year that was one of the cost savings that we did while COVID and so much of the programming was halted during the last year. But as we have ramped back up our recreation programming, it was difficult for folks to find information. They couldn't always figure out where to find it on the website and so on. Our seniors that don't always have access to the internet had a harder time. So those that I have talked to over the last year that have asked for this specifically are very excited to be getting it again in their mailboxes. I do have a question, perhaps Mr. Almas, I don't know if he's here, but I know in the previous iteration of the recreation brochure, part of it was paid for with ad revenue. Is that going to continue this time around?
I'll have to double check on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, Mr. Gettings, do you have something?
Yes. Mr. Grafstein, how many mailings, Melissa, do we have right now per year?
I think we have 3.
3? Summer,
We're about to do
spring?
1.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 1 in the fall.
And then the winter? Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments from council? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against say no. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have ordinances. First one, G1, is from the CED Director. It's Ordinance 2168. It's the zoning text amendment regarding outdoor storage and outdoor vehicle storage. This is the second reading. Mrs. Marsh?
The proposed text amendment identifies different types of open storage associated with business and industrial uses. The standards are set based on the intensity of use, zoning, and surrounding districts. This amendment eases restrictions on storage for industrial uses. The proposed amendment intends to add clarity to assist code enforcement and encourage the orderly layout of open storage areas. Especially, this amendment addresses several issues, including the only requirement for open storage in the industrial area is the requirement of a 6-foot screening wall. The ordinance does not have any standards to regulate site maintenance, site design, or alternative screening standards. It may be neither practical nor reasonable to require a 6-foot wall, especially in cases where similar industrial uses are abutting. Currently, any deviation from the 6-foot wall requirement would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. Such a request may be difficult to justify given the criteria for variances. It should be noted that the majority of open storage areas in the city do not conform with the screen wall requirement because there are existing nonconformities. The proposed amendment addresses flexibility and sets standards to regulate storage areas. Landscaping and screening require a green belt and screening requirement in all districts where outside storage is allowed. This conflicts with the 6-foot screen wall only requirement under section 10.509.3. When such conflict exists, the stricter standard prevails. The proposed amendment clarifies this conflict and requires higher screening standards when a property abuts residential and loosens restrictions when it's surrounded by similar zonings or uses. Parking requirements are unclear regarding limitations requiring the storage of merchandise, motor vehicles for sale, etc. Storage that is an accessory to a permitted use should be allowed, not restricted. The proposed amendment identifies the different types of vehicular storage, such as car sales, fleet vehicle, contractor equipment, or trailers, and identifies means to store them on site, subject to certain standards. The current use standards are for used and new car sales are similar uses are minimal, as noted in section 10.326. Uses permissible on special approval. The current ordinance does not provide any guidance for using a neighbor's property for storage of additional vehicles, provided that they have additional space to spare. For example, car rentals are permitted in the business districts. However, a majority of business districts in Madison Heights are small and do not have enough space to park all of the rental vehicles. Such shared agreements would require ZBA approval based on current standards. The proposed amendment addresses such situations to help existing businesses grow in place. Based on current standards, a vehicle under 3/4 ton is permitted to be parked in a residential lot, but a ZBA approval is required when it weighs over 3/4 ton. The process may be considered excessive for residents who can park such vehicles without impacting the neighborhood. The proposed amendment streamlines the process and allows an administrative review option. The Planning Commission has reviewed this ordinance and recommends that City Council approve the draft amendment as Ordinance 2168 as presented upon this second reading.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Councilman Bliss?
I move that we approve ordinance 2168 as presented on second reading.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Support.
support.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from council?
Your Honor, just for the sake of the residents, there was a lot there. Very simply, there are some areas that we had to clean up because there could have been discrepancies that somebody could have taken advantage of. In some of these areas, we needed to make it easier for businesses in our city to be able to grow in situations where that wouldn't be a hindrance to local, residential neighborhoods or anything like that. And so there's like 7 or 8 paragraphs that City Manager Marsh did a great job of reading through. But for the recap for each of you, it's just simplifying, making it easier for our businesses to be able to grow and cutting out some conflicting language that may be allowing exceptions unintentionally.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone on council? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 2169, another zoning text amendment. Mrs. Marsh?
This proposed amendment revises the current list of permitted uses in the M1 Light Industrial District to include additional uses commonly found in light industrial districts. It also takes uses such as recreational facilities and private fitness facilities that would be subject to special approval and includes them in permitted uses. This proposed amendment is intended to reduce unnecessary cost and time for new businesses seeking to locate in our light industrial district. Planning Commission recommends that City Council approve the draft amendments, which are Ordinance 2169, as presented upon this second reading.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Councilman Bliss?
I move that we adopt ordinance 2169 as presented on the second reading.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach? Support. Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say no. Motion carries. Third up, G3 from the City Attorney, the recommendation for ordinance 2172, source of income housing discrimination. This is the first reading. Mrs. Marsh?
At the May 2021 HREC, or Human Relations and Equity Commission meeting, the committee approved the drafting of a non-discriminating source of income housing ordinance. Staff and legal counsel reviewed the draft ordinance submitted and have researched the proposed ordinance, as well as ordinances approved in Ferndale, Ann Arbor, and Hazel Park to develop the attached ordinance for council consideration. While staff had issues enforcing the attached ordinance, it has come to our attention that Oakland County has provided funding resources for the Fair Housing Center to actually follow up on complaints that would be monitored through this ordinance.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach?
Give me 1 second, I just lost my place on my agenda.
2172.
Thank you. I move that council approves I move that council approves ordinance number 2172, source of income housing non-discrimination, on first reading.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Ms. Grafstein, support.
Thank you, Mr. Gettings. All right, motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor. So for those that don't know what this is, source of income non-discrimination ordinances are ordinances that have been recommended to come to municipalities, especially from from the county. The Board of Commissioners at the county identified that there is some issues with income housing discrimination, meaning that individuals who are seeking housing for various types of housing, apartments, homes, whatever it is, that they were having a very difficult time being able to identify a landlord that would rent to them, even if they met all other criteria, including the amount that they could pay for rent. But they were being denied because their income may have come from Social Security or may have come from Veterans Administration or FHA or all these other types of voucher programs. And that was causing individuals to have about a 20% of the time being able to actually find housing when they are recipients of these vouchers. So only like 80% of people who were getting the vouchers weren't able to use them because they could not find a landlord who would rent to them. And in this time where people are going to be, a city like ours, in this time when people are facing foreclosure and eviction and loss of income, making sure that people have access to housing, fair access to housing in neighborhoods right here in our city is really, really important. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our neighbors, that we are taking care of those in our community who have access to the funding to be able to pay for their housing at the exact level that the landlord wants to receive as their income, but part of their income comes from a voucher program. And this ordinance makes it so that landlords cannot say, no, I do not take vouchers. The funding that is coming from Oakland County is going towards the Fair Housing Network to help with education for landlords, in addition to helping to guide individuals who are having issues with housing discrimination. The Fair Housing Center of Metro Detroit provides housing discrimination complaint litigation help for individuals. And so they will help resolve unequal housing disputes. And so our city would be asked to, if somebody is finding that they are unable to receive, they can meet all other criteria to sign a lease at an apartment or a home, but the landlord is saying, no, we just don't take your voucher, that they can file a complaint, a citation can be issued, and then be referred to the Fair Housing Center of Metro Detroit to be able to take them through the rest of the process. So our city doesn't have an undue burden of having to support and investigate or anything like that. It can go directly to the Fair Housing Center to be able to adjudicate from there. I've done a bunch of research on this, and I originally brought it to the HREC earlier this year. We were able to bring in Charlie Cavell from the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, as well as individuals from Fair Housing Network and the Oakland County Housing Authority. I can't remember what it's called all of a sudden. But they were able to come in and give a presentation about what this is, what it means for individuals, what it means for residents, and the HREC at that time unanimously agreed that this was going to be a good thing for removing disparities and discrimination opportunities for individuals within and families within the city. So I'm happy to answer more questions if anybody has any, because I've done my research.
Your Honor?
Mr. Corbett, please.
Yeah, I do. My concern with the ordinance is not as to the worthiness of it, but it is on the enforcement. In my mind, the worst possible thing we could do would be to pass an ordinance which has no effective enforcement, that we're going to actually disappoint people. So I'm going to skip some of my comments and get directly to follow up to help my understanding here. You said that the money has been allocated by the county to the Fair Housing Center.
Correct.
So somebody would come to the city, file a complaint, a citation would be issued, and then it would be referred to the Fair Housing Center. If a citation has been issued, presumably the investigation will have been completed. Isn't that doing what you said the Fair Housing?
Fair Housing Center, so I don't know the process, like, and the police side of things, but the Fair Housing Center, I don't know if they would have to have the citation first, or that the person can go first to the Fair Housing Center and say, I am facing discrimination in signing a lease for this home. And what they exactly say is, initiates negotiations, conciliations, and litigations to help resolve unequal housing disputes. So they will initiate the work, and they provide all the legal resources to the individuals who are saying, I'm having an issue with this. So it may be that first they have to go through the Fair Housing Center, and then they get the citation, would be recommended. But that would be up to our police department, obviously, to make the decision about what step in the process they need that to go towards. But I think that the point is that we, as a city, are not going to be investigating and following all of those leads down. Like, we don't have to assign an investigator to that case. The complainants would be directly referred to the Fair Housing Center, Metro Detroit.
Your Honor,
Please.
just one comment based on what Councilor Rohrbach is describing. It would seem to me if the county is allocating substantial assets to the Fair Housing Center, the process, any complaints would first be vetted there and investigated there, which addresses, I think, some of staff's concerns relating to us having to do the investigation and enforcing the ordinance, which from a personnel standpoint and type of work we do is just somewhat difficult, because a lot of it is also regulated by federal and state law. So if that's the case, what you're describing makes sense to me, and it would take some of the burden off of our police department in terms of investigating before any citation is issued. So the rest would be up to council in terms of whether they would want to adopt the ordinance, which is kind of a policy statement via ordinance that we're not going to go along with source of income discrimination of any type.
Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I still have the
Okay.
one I want. I do have a couple more questions. I just want to be clear on this, Mr. Sherman, and I realize we're speculating here because this is new news. But I mean, that's not necessary. So if I felt aggrieved and I felt that someone had not rented to me on that basis, I would go to the Fair Housing Center and say, look, whatever. If they were essentially able to build a case or establish a portfolio, then they might come to your office or to the police department and ask for the ticket to be issued?
I would say probably to the police department for the issuance of a citation under the ordinance of first offense is listed as a civil infraction.
Because
But also what Councilor Rohrbach was describing was facilitation, mediation, alternate dispute resolution mechanism to try to help resolve the circumstance before it became necessary to issue any citation.
Yeah.
Is how I'm reading between the lines.
Okay.
We were not aware of that until Councilor Rohrbach mentioned it tonight.
Mr. Corbett, does that?
Yeah, I'm good for now.
Okay.
Your Honor. So I would say you're correct, Mr. Sherman, about the conciliation and all of that, because the funding that's going to the Fair Housing Center is over $1 million is being allocated towards that. And it's not only for making sure that home seekers are able to follow through with like a discrimination case, but they're also going to be working a bunch towards educating landlords, giving them the resources, helping them fill out the paperwork so that they can accept the money through the various sources. One of the things that I heard when I was listening to the fair housing people talk about why this is important was a lot of landlords over the course of the last year, during the eviction moratorium, when their tenants were not paying their bills, those landlords were out of luck. They weren't able, they couldn't, there's no recourse. Those landlords, however, that received voucher funding never lost their income. That income continued because the federal government and these different voucher programs continued to pay. So it was a benefit to those that were accepting those vouchers all along, because they were able to not lose the income because it was guaranteed along the way. So the Fair Housing Center is going to help home seekers with disputes, but also help to educate and to bring the landlords along. I don't think that the source of income non-discrimination ordinance here is looking to be punitive in any way. It's looking to give opportunities to people who need homes. And and if you look at the ordinances and the work that's been done in like Hazel Park and Ferndale and Ann Arbor, they have worked and given a period of like a year or 2 years to help those landlords phase in all of their required paperwork and the things that they needed to do to be able to start accepting that income. It wasn't like, it came into existence in 10 days from now and then boom, you're going to get a ticket because you didn't do it right away. There's a phase-in time period through the Fair Housing Center, helps people to get what they need, gives them a few chances to get it right so that they can start to accept that funding.
Is there any other questions or discussion from council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
I was just mentioned that this isn't meant to be punitive. I'm trying to wrap my head around the section on penalties in the ordinance, because it says any violation is punishable by a fine of up to $500, and that's done by the court. And so I'm hearing that the county is going to enforce, but it's not punitive, and this says that the court enforces, but it's up to $500 fine. I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. It sounds like, I don't know, and maybe I'm just not following per se because we have some new information. But I did some Googling. There are 18 states that have a source of income or non-discriminatory source of income laws. A lot of local governments do. And Oakland County, I know that they proposed the resolution and they did the funding, but I'm not seeing anywhere where they passed a law that then they could enforce with the money that they budgeted. So it makes it a little difficult for me. I don't know if they want us to play middleman and send things, because what we send is going to go to the 43rd District Court, correct?
Correct.
And so I don't know where the involvement of their new commission would get in. I'm with Councilman Corbett. I think this is a great idea, but I'm not sure that it's fully flushed out. I'm having a hard time following each and every item here, and it could just be me, but it seems like we're going to issue a citation that then goes to the court that can't necessarily enforce it. But there's also this Oakland County thing happening. Oakland County wants us to pass this, but they won't pass a law themselves. I don't know. Maybe somebody can help me out because I'm just not quite following here.
Councilor Rohrbach, you seem to be the one who's most knowledgeable about this. I'm just going to throw in, I've been taking notes and I've been trying to figure that as well. So I guess a couple of my questions would be, it sounds like if this gets passed, it doesn't take effect right away. It takes effect in a couple of years and there's going to be education. So I'm curious what education has been happening now. We have a lot of renters and landlords in the city, and a lot of our landlords live in the city. And so I'm just curious what education's already been provided to them and what their thoughts are, on this. If it does go to court, is that the city paying? Is it the renter, fair housing, the county, the landlord? Like who's paying for that? Something's happened at the county, but I guess why is the city doing this? Why isn't the county doing it? That's sort of the first half of my questions. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this. Please.
So back earlier this year, the county, I can't speak for what the county is deciding to do or not and what's in all of their heads, but, they introduced a legislative package, and it include resolution to call on all Oakland County cities, villages, and townships to adopt local policies to prohibit source of income and housing discrimination. And then they wanted to partner with an advocate organization like Fair Housing Michigan, or what was it called? The Fair Housing Network, to be able to collaborate with this, and then the county is creating that Fair Housing Fund that provides that $1 million of grants to be able to handle those complaints. They were also looking at the time when they first introduced this set of this package that they were trying to get through, they wanted to also provide for some landlord risk mitigation funds and different things like that. That so far has not passed at the county level. So I can't speak to as why the county hasn't been able to do it. But what I can say is that I believe that we need to immediately expand access to affordable housing for the people in this city. Affordable housing we're at a crisis point for affordable housing for residents and for individuals in our city. And, we have the opportunity here to, number one, make sure that individuals have access to affordable housing regardless of where their funding comes from. And number two, to provide a resource to landlords so that they can understand where to get this funds, how to sign up for these voucher programs and things like that. The city of Hazel Park, when they did it, they just sent out a mailer to all the landlords, all the registered landlords in their city saying, this is a change of ordinance, these are the things you have to do now, and here is your resource, the Fair Housing Center, to be able to learn more about what your next steps are. I think I may have missed one of two of the questions along the way, but.
Your Honor?
Yes, please, go ahead. I think you were done.
I'm done.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can help you on one question, and you won't like my answer on another one, but the reason that the county hasn't passed or done anything with it is because they simply lack authority in this area. There is no county authority for housing. It's not any different than, for example, when we pass a resolution telling the state, whatever. We don't have authority to control the state either, but we certainly are allowed an opinion. The county, and the County Board of Commissioners in particular, it's kind of a unique group. They're in they cross all sorts of lines. They had an opinion on housing practices, and so they drafted that, as I recall. You may have been there, Councilwoman, but I remember there was a press conference and they talked about it, and really that's what they were doing. They were trying to act as a sounding board, the conscience of the county in this issue. I certainly think that as one whose livelihood depends on the accessibility of people to housing, will tell you that the principal reason for the limit of housing access right now has nothing. I don't know how much of it has to do with source of income discrimination, but I will tell you it's simply the free market working, which has driven up the prices. You know, you have homes right now that are well over 200,000, and even though they've fallen back a little bit in the past month or two, they're still wacky. In my old neighborhood, which I think is yours and the mayor's, you know, I remember my parents bought them for $14,500 back in the 50s. Okay, the dark ages, but now they're well over 200,000 for those properties now. So, with respect, it's normal market function that has led to a lot of people being denied housing access at the moment. Let me just circle back, and then I'll be done talking on the issue. I want to listen. I do believe I've worked in, as I said, in the real estate area for well over 40 years, and I know that the rationale that I heard the commissioners and Chairman Woodward talk about months ago is valid. I've been there. I've worked with people. And I know that people make decisions for all sorts of reasons, some that are good, some that are bad, some that are neutral. And one of the things I have consistently said for over 40 years is I'm wholly practical. I don't care who buys a home or why they do, so long as it's a fair transaction, so long as the seller, if it's a seller, is compensated fairly for his investment and work, and the buyer or the renter gets a property that get what they pay for, then it's good. You have to just simply regulate the rules on how those people come together. So I think that's all fair. I really do believe in a perfect world the city would not be getting involved in this issue per se, because we are probably lacking the resources, most of the resources. This really is a state level issue, but there are any number of reasons why the state's not going to do it, none the least of which is money and philosophical differences on the people who control the purse strings. And I think that we do need to stand with the community and our residents in terms of fair and equal access to housing across the board. I am concerned, though. The worst thing in my mind would be, the worst thing, whether this ordinance passes or it's defeated, far worse to me would be a situation where we adopt this ordinance, a year from now somebody is wronged on this basis, on an income. They come to the city and they find out that it was a hollow promise that we made, that we don't have the ability to help them out. We don't have the ability to bring a landlord to responsible behavior. That's the kind of thing that over the years has led people to disrespect government, not to trust government, because government's all interested in all show and no go. We wanted to get on the right side of an issue, and then we made promises we couldn't keep. So I guess that's the thing I have to be convinced about, that this is able to provide sufficient leverage to help people who really need it, who really do get wronged in this area. So that's it.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach?
I appreciate, Mr. Corbett, I appreciate everything you just said, because I think that you're right. Currently, I think it's the inventory, right? There's not enough houses to go around, so it's an inventory problem as far as people not being able to find a house in 2021. But if you looked back at 2009, 2010, 2011, when there was a glut of properties available, but there were, this issue with discrimination. And so I'm looking kind of long-term about how this could be. But, what I'm hearing is I feel like we're on the same page as far as the need for creating equal access for residents to be able to have access to affordable housing here in our city. And our role as, because the county can't, they can't do it, the state's not going to do it. They don't care. And, it comes down to us. So my thought is this, perhaps the current ordinance and the way that is written is not the best version of what this could be. It's not fleshed out enough. It doesn't have enough information. and doesn't have enough kind of like the long-term over the next year, like the phasing in, the information about how that's going to phase in and things like that. And I would be willing and open to tabling this for reassessment, for our legal department to look at the questions that were asked today, to think about how those could be addressed, talking to the county to see how county resources can be allocated so that, because the county has the money, we have the authority, right? They can allocate the money not to us, but to this other organization. So I'm not looking for our city to have a bunch of extra hollow promises. What I'm looking for us to do is to look out for our residents, those people who live here in this city or want to live here in this city, and for one reason or another haven't been able to because of their source of income. So I'm not married to the language in the current ordinance.
Your Honor, please, just as a suggestion, and given the conversation tonight, instead of adopting the ordinance, we could just adopt a policy at the city and do a mailing to all of our landlords with this information. And we do get calls from renters, but we don't have any mechanism to help them currently, but we could add this to the city resources of referring renters and people wishing to buy homes to the Fair Housing Center of Detroit, or, well, I'm looking at the wrong page, but the Fair Housing Center of Oakland County. So they do have a resource, and that takes the enforcement piece out of the city, because this is something we really can't enforce without them anyway. And then we would be sending them to the direct organization that could offer them help to begin with, without passing an ordinance that really doesn't have any teeth to it.
Your Honor?
Sure.
Does it tell landlords that, like, it's just a suggestion?
Hold on. I actually, I had a thought, and that is, maybe what we can do is we can educate landlords. I know a variety of landlords. They have the rentals, and there are some who only do Section 8. They like the fact that it doesn't matter what's going on, it's government money, they're going to get it. And they really like that. But I also know landlords who want nothing to do with it. They, just in case, the terms of the reason that you're getting this government funding, if that changes, then all of a sudden they can't pay. And so there's both sides to it. And I think that the education piece, I'm very interested in that. And I would like to see, this came from the Human Relations and Equity Commission. Perhaps this is something that they can set up some kind of, at the library, some kind of an educational for landlords or for people who are looking at becoming landlords, explaining to them the benefits of this. I would prefer to do that than to say you have to do this. I really don't like the idea of saying to someone, this is how you have to run your business.
Your Honor.
When there's people who do it and there's people who don't.
Your Honor, I think that's the point, though, right? So, like, you're saying to people, it's okay for you to be like, I don't like your money. I don't like that you get Social Security, so I'm not going to take your money, even though it's the exact same amount of money. It's the exact same, the landlords are not required to lower their standards, lower their background checks. They're not required to take less money for their income. But what we're saying by not going forward, not kind of putting the ordinance on this is, it's just a suggestion. And that's what it is right now, right? Like, that changes nothing.
Have there been education on this?
I mean, the education is absolutely important, and I think that's a big part of what the Fair Housing Center's funding is going to be doing, is to pushing information out to landlords. But, as a city, we're saying to the landlords, like, take it or leave it. You can still discriminate based on where somebody's income comes from.
So if we want the county to send the fair housing education information, we have to pass this ordinance.
No. The education isn't, it's going to be out there. It's going to be, they're going to be working to educate people. Our ordinance would be saying, make sure you take advantage of this educational opportunity so that you know how to avoid having, getting into a pinch about this. There may be requirements. So one of the things that I have heard from people say that that I've heard from landlords, not me personally, but people that work in the community housing, is that landlords will say, I don't want to take this federal money because my building or my home doesn't meet the standards. Like they have to pass the inspection, the HUD inspection or whatever. And I say, well, that's a problem, isn't it? Like, it's a problem if that avoids slumlords and like poor upkeep of apartments and homes. Home seekers, no matter who they are, deserve to be able to live in a safe and affordable home. And if they can afford a home with the source of income that they have, they still have to pass a background check. They still have to do all the things that the landlord requires. They just have to look at the income and say, a dollar is a dollar. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
And you've talked to landlords in the city with this?
I personally haven't been
You
talking
have
to
not,
landlords.
okay.
But I was talking to the community housing people about, they talk to thousands of landlords. I would do well to, take a small sample of like the 3 landlords I happen to know and ask them their opinion. That's not exactly like scientific. So I was talking to the experts about what they see over and over and over again, and trying to understand how we can, as a city, best address this important need that we're seeing in the city. People come to us and say, hey, it's a travesty that we can't, that there's expensive apartments in this city, and we need more affordable housing. Well, there's the problem of the inventory, which is one thing, but there is one of the things that can make housing more affordable is people being able to take advantage of voucher programs that are legally and rightfully available to them, be they veterans, be they seniors, be they disabled, whatever it is, and be able to use that to pay for their housing and make it affordable within their budget.
Your Honor?
Mr. Bliss.
I agree with a lot of what was said. My challenge, and I think others at the table, is just this, as it stands, this ordinance, it has too many questions and answers, and this is too important of a subject, at least for me, for us to get wrong. I think the cost is too high for us to get wrong and have somebody experience something, and as Councilman Corbett said, come in here and we just say, oh, well, we passed something, but it didn't help. And so my recommendation would be that we go back to the drawing board. I think that Planning Commission should probably review this. I'd like to have an understanding of that Fair Housing Fund, where it goes, what are the requirements of what we have to pass to get money, what are the stipulations for where, what does the citation consist of, who does it, where does it go, what is the process? We don't have any of that information right now. And I also would love to get, whether he can come here or we can get a statement. I trust County Commissioner McGilvery a lot. He sat in these chairs. I'd love to understand his perspective on this as well. And so, I'd like to call the question on the current vote. And if it fails, let's take it back to the drawing board. Let's send it to planning. Let's get the information and let's bring it back and do this right.
Your Honor.
Call the question, Your Honor.
Why planning? Is that the proper commission or?
Hold on, point of order. we're calling, you want to call the vote now in discussion? Is that?
Your Honor, I would
Point of
like
order.
to call the question.
Okay. I'm sorry, sir, the public comment was earlier. We're not having public comment. This is not a public hearing. That was earlier comments.
Your Honor? All right, so I'm going to pipe in now because
Hold on. Mr. Bliss has asked us to call the question, so he's asked for a vote now. If I understand this correctly. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So
don't ever remember that happening before, where we just make a motion like that.
It's in Robert's rules.
it's Robert's rules.
You can call the question.
Your Honor, I'll reserve to let the Mayor Pro Tem speak.
Okay.
I just
Thank you.
don't, Your Honor, I just don't want us to go back and forth on something that, I just don't think we're there yet. And if I'm wrong and a majority wants to move forward with this, sure. I just don't want to go back and forth for too long. But I will concede to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in with my colleague. I give her credit. She's taken 3 against 1, 4 against 1. So I think you conceded that it needs some little bit of work. So that point is already talked about. And so I understand where you're coming from. I think we do need some type of policy in this regard because there are people that are getting turned away, and it's atrocious. But again, I think from what I understand, we were going to bring this back to the drawing board. Is that correct? Is that what your mind?
That's what I had suggested earlier, yes.
Yeah, and so then we'll be able to do it that way. So I have no problem. We would have to vote on that?
Your Honor,
Please.
one possible means for council to handle this is for there to be a substitute motion to table or postpone indefinitely. And there would, if there was a second to that motion, the substitute motion would be voted on first. If that failed, then there would be a vote on the main motion, which is a motion to approve on first reading. So we're talking about it, but we're not there yet because there's not a substitute motion on the floor.
So if I'm understanding correctly, City Attorney, I thought what the plan would be is to bring it back to the drawing board or at least revisit it and with some of these issues. But you're saying to defeat it altogether, make a motion?
No, I'm saying that if council wanted to put it back on the drawing board, so to speak, give it further consideration, answer some of the questions that have been discussed at the council table tonight, a substitute motion would be in order to either table or postpone indefinitely. The difference is, if we tabled it, it would have to be brought from the table for council to consider it, and if we postponed it indefinitely, it would be without date, so council would have sufficient time to consider all the information that staff could bring to bear on the topic.
Okay. And Councilor Vorback, is that something you would agree with too?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
We would still need someone to make a substitute motion if that's the way council.
Right now, on the table, right now, we have spent the last 40 minutes talking about this as it stands. Councilman Bliss has asked for a vote on that, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, if somebody would like to make a substitute motion, happy to have that. I just don't want to go back and forth on this, and to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, I don't see this as a 3 versus 1 or all of us want to pass something, just not the thing that's on the table. I don't think it's as detailed. We don't have all the information, and whether or not we vote it down and then send it back to the drawing board, or we table it and then send it back to the drawing board, I'm supportive in either direction. I just don't think this is where it needs to be for us to pass it tonight.
Your Honor, I make a substitute motion to table this indefinitely.
Table it indefinitely, all right. So now, we have a substitute motion to table this indefinitely. Do we have, oh, sorry, yes?
The motion actually is to postpone instead of table. It means
Table has
two
a
different
date.
things.
Table has a date, yes. Okay, so to postpone this indefinitely with no date, is there a second?
Your Honor.
Mayor Pro Tem Soltis.
Second.
All right, so
Your
now,
Honor, I'm sorry. Yeah, as much as I'm somebody who, has an opinion at the table, I gotta insist that things be done fairly, and 2 things need to happen. First of all, with respect, Mr. Sherman, I have to correct you. A calling of the question, if that was true, there'd be no point to parliamentary procedure. It takes a 2/3 vote to cut off debate, just for future reference. When somebody says, I'm calling the question, they're simply vocally saying, I'm ready to vote, shut the hell up, whatever. But that's what that means. Number two, postponing indefinitely is something different than tabling. Postponing indefinitely has the effect of killing the proposal for the current council. So in other words, it can't be brought back up again until, I've used it myself here, so I know. It would be, now, you got an election in 2 months, so, but you can't, if you pass a motion that postpones indefinitely, takes just a simple majority, and it will kill it for the current term. If you want to, a better motion would be to refer it back to staff. If that's, I'm not crazy about it, but if you postpone indefinitely, the proposal's committing suicide.
Okay, Your Honor. I'm going to defer to counsel right now and give him a second to think about this. Which one do we do? Because I'd like to take it back up. So I defer to turn it back to staff.
Councilor Rohrbach, I believe that what you want to do is, you don't want to have a vote tonight because it appears that it will probably not pass, but you don't want this to die.
Right.
At some point in the future, you want a discussion on this. And I can't speak for everyone, but I would like to get more information about this. This is something that we need to look at, but the way it stands now, I'm not going to be voting yes on this. So we need to figure out a way to get through this. If we table it, I think we have to have an actual date, and I don't know how long that will take to get the information together. I think that there's a lot of people we need to talk to, and there could potentially, a member of the public wanted to speak, whether he wanted to speak in favor or against or had questions. I do think that we need to table it for more than a meeting.
Your Honor, once again, for simplicity, what I will recommend is that the substitute motion be withdrawn, and that in lieu of it, you move to refer it back to the attorney's office for further reporting. You can pull it out anytime you'd like, but it would get it out of here, and we can go home before midnight.
Okay, Your Honor.
40 minutes, yep.
Mr. Sherman.
What's been proposed is a way to get there, too.
Okay.
Secondly, for the record, the calling the question was withdrawn by Councilman Bliss, just so we're all clear on that. And you could just as easily make a substitute motion to refer the matter back to staff. And at some point, once we have all the information, we'll be reporting. If that passes, we will be reporting back to council on that topic. And just as an aside, just for everybody's edification, the reason for the $500 fine is that's our maximum jurisdiction in terms of the cases we handle, whether it's a misdemeanor or a civil infraction. $500 fine, $500 cost, and there's other incidentals that the court can pile on, but that's not germane to this discussion. But that's the reason for that, unless the state gives some extraordinary authority to us, like with fireworks violations, to impose $1,000. The $500 is the maximum we can do. So that's the reason for it in the ordinance. But in any event, you could amend your motion to be a referral back to staff for a report, and when it's ready, council can take the issue up if it wishes to at that time.
Okay, so, Your Honor, I amend my motion to refer the matter back to staff so that council can take it up at a future date.
Order?
Second, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. So, just for clarification, now on the table is a substitute motion to refer this matter back to staff to be brought up at a later date. All right, is there any discussion on this substitute motion? All right, all in favor, please, of the substitute motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those against say no. The substitute motion carries. This will be referred back to staff to be discussed at a later date.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we've got the minutes from the regular city council meeting from August 23rd. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Corbett.
Seeking consensus at the table, I move that we approve as printed the regular meeting minutes of 8/23/21.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
I second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against say no. All right, motion carried. Minutes have been approved. That concludes the regular meeting, and I welcome closing comments from council. Ms. Corbett?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to, I just want to dovetail something from a previous conversation very quickly. No, my concerns regarding the discrimination ordinance was not as to the validity of it. I genuinely have concerns about the enforcement, so I didn't want that comment to hang out at the table that, we had you lined up against the wall and the firing squad was ready. I mean, it was simply a matter of, there were concerns and we were getting new information at the table, which is not always easy to digest and one of my pet peeves, Your Honor. But other than that, beautiful fall day, and we hope, minus the rain, but hopefully we'll get a few more before the year's out and the snow flies. That's it. I have nothing more.
All right, thank you. Councilman Bliss?
Yes, Your Honor. I appreciate the debate, and I suppose I apologize if it seemed like there was a 3-against-1 scenario Mayor Pro Tem brought up. I think that it's a positive for us to debate these things, particularly issues this big. And I agree with Councilman Corbett. I think that the validity of what we're discussing is important, and it's there, and it's something we should be handling. I just need to know a little bit more information why, and so I'm glad that staff is going to take the ball, run with it, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some answers to these questions before we bring it back. I also want to thank council again for honoring my dad, thank my family for coming out, especially those that hung in there longer than the first half hour. That's tough to do. My daughters in particular, somehow they managed, like they knew when they could get up and bother grandma to be able to leave, and they hung in there. So I'm very proud of them for that. They will no doubt be getting an ice cream cake tomorrow, and that's on record. So they're getting it. I said it at a public meeting. It's got to be true, right? Anyway, I appreciate everybody for showing their love and support to my family during what has been a tough time, and I truly appreciate my peers on council and city staff for putting that resolution together. It was great to be able to have my family out there, and it was awesome for the public to have one more chance to hear how great of a man my father was. That's it, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Councilman Gettings?
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I kind of have to say this. Like Councilman Bliss, I too lost a father, and it's the 60th anniversary of my dad passing tomorrow. My dad was a great guy. I only had him for less than 10 years, but I have to say that I miss him dearly, and only knowing him less than 10 years, I think he taught me a lot about life. And he taught me the game of chess, if you can believe this, at 6 years old, and it's something we shared and played together. But he instilled in me different things about life, and we went on vacations together, and he was a great guy, and I didn't want it to pass without saying something along those lines. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Gettings. Mr. Sherman, anything from the Attorney's Office?
Very briefly, Your Honor. First of all, I thought your comments, Mark, were beautiful. And I was watching your family during some of the comments, and it was very difficult but very heartfelt. And I think former Councilwoman Scott's suggestion about honoring people in our community like Tony Bliss and Jack Scott for everything they did. We're so civic-minded and community-minded, making this city such a better place for everyone to live in. It's very special. I think it's a great idea, and I hope that the family will put together a fitting tribute for Tony so that he'll be remembered by anybody who goes down and sees the rooms and sees our history, because they're certainly both very, very much a part of it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mrs. Marsh?
Yes, I have a couple of things. First of all, Mark, I'm very happy we could honor your father, and it seems like the smallest token we could do for you. Second of all, I have a couple of exciting things. Restaurant Week is happening again for the second time. So last year was our first year during COVID to try to help out some of the restaurants that were struggling during that period. So this year it's going to kick off next week, September the 19th through the 24th. We have over 20 restaurants participating. The majority of restaurants that participated last year are participating again this year because it was such a positive experience for them. We have been making social media posts, if you follow us on Facebook, so you know which restaurants are participating and what. But if you don't have that, you can always visit the website, Madison Heights Restaurant Week. There's a tab at the top, Participants. It talks about the specials that they have, and it's a great opportunity to go to restaurants on that list that you haven't gone to before because they're offering special deals. It's just a great way to visit these restaurants at less expense than normal. So you might find a new favorite restaurant. I know I did last year. Also, for those of you who are either have heard and are interested and maybe who haven't heard, the city is about to embark upon the biggest capital improvement project that I think we've ever done here. With the relocation of the Active Adult Center to this complex, the renovation, downsizing of City Hall, and the renovation of the library. In addition to that, we are also going to be rebuilding, I guess is maybe the right word, renovating Fire Station 2, which is located on the south side on John R. I had the public meeting tonight. I gave the presentation kind of in test form to the Citizens Academy last Wednesday, and it was received very positively. Tonight I had the first community engagement meeting, and again, very positive comments, very positive feedback. It really is a very economically savvy and common sense approach to fixing a lot of the city's capital assets. But if you haven't had time to come to a meeting, we're having another meeting tomorrow during the day at the Active Adult Center. It's at 1 o'clock. I know a lot of people work. So if you're interested and you can't come tomorrow at 1, you can always stop in and see me. I'm willing to talk to anybody anytime about it. Or if there's enough people that want to have another community engagement meeting, I'm more than happy to have that too. But, if there's 1 or 2 people, just feel free to stop in. I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Anything from the clerk's office this evening?
The clerk's office has been receiving and processing the absent voter ballot applications. We are looking to send out our ballots on September 24th. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilor Rohrbach?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to our police chief and fire chief and all of the first responders who helped us in a remembrance ceremony on Saturday for the remembrance 20th anniversary of 9/11. It was a really beautiful ceremony, so I appreciated it when everybody came out for that. I also want to say thank you to Mrs. Marsh. I came to the info session today just to see how, because I'd like to hear from residents about what they feel about this and to make sure that questions are answered about the Civic Center complex project, because I'm really excited about it, and there are some really wonderful things that are going to happen, and lots of questions and rumors get swirling, and so it would be really wonderful if people could get the facts, and so I'm happy to provide those, or please come to the next info session. And I just wanted to note that at the library right now, around from the front, around to the side, and then towards 13 Mile, you're going to be seeing some improvements. The Kaboom Play Anywhere grant has funded some improvements to the front of the library, which include a a patio for outdoor seating to be able to sit and enjoy. There's some musical interactive musical instruments that are going to be installed, some play areas, some murals, some really beautiful things that are going to be worked on by both our DPS department as well as individuals and artists who are going to be painting the murals and so forth. So I'm really excited about that because it is going to be beautiful, it's going to be accessible to people, and it's going to really change how our library is perceived and seen from the road. I know people that have lived in the city for many years that don't even know where the library is when they pass it. So this will actually help to address some of that. I wanted to also just say, I did not feel like I was under fire. I really enjoy a good debate, so don't worry, I'm good. And I think that is the beauty of municipal government like this. It's we don't all make a decision before we walk in here. We're here to have the open discussion, to talk to each other, to learn what the challenges are and what could be done better so that we can go back if we need to, like we did this time, go back to the drawing board and find a better solution. And I think that, I appreciate a civil discussion at all times. So thank you very much for all participating in that tonight.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Soltis?
Yeah, I was just cracking a joke. Right? We've been doing this for almost 8 years, so, yeah, and it's unusual, well, not unusual, but when somebody's missing, right? So I'm way down over here and everybody's over there. I was going to ask former Councilwoman Margine to sit in the place here for us for the session. Yeah, please do. I welcome you. I sat with her for almost 8 years, and I learned a lot from her. So, thank you. Yeah, Mark. My heart goes out to you and your family about your father. I too lost my father, and I had to do the math after Councilman Gettings was talking about his dad. My father died 36 years ago. I was 19, so I understand about that, and so our prayers go out to you and your family. I want to say something about Natalie's Bakery. If you haven't been there, you're missing out. So you have to go to Natalie's Bakery. They're starting to expand now. They're putting in Kroger. I almost said Farmer Jack. Is that? I don't know where the heck that came from. Jesus. So yeah, or Great Scott. Remember that? Now I'm dating myself. All right. So Natalie's Bakery is fantastic. You got to try it out. And I appreciate everything that we all do. And City Attorney, we really appreciate all your insight. You've done a fantastic job, you and your brother. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sitting through our discussion. We don't know everything, and some of us know more about one topic than other people do. So, this is a learning experience for all of us. And what I really appreciate about tonight's discussion is that, yes, there were 3 of us who seemed to have questions, and there was one of us who seemed to have the bulk of the answers. And from that discussion, we're able to basically come to agreement. I think we all agree we want to do something, but we need to work on it. And so I really do appreciate that we could have that discussion. I feel that so much in life right now, people are very set in it has to be my way or no way, and so I really appreciate that. So thank you, Councilor Rohrbach, for the educational piece. I do appreciate that. I do think a lot more people need to get involved and get the information out there. I want to just say, Councilman Bliss, thank you for your words. Thank your family. I think they might have all gone by now, or a few of them here. But I only met your dad a couple of times, and he seemed like a really nice guy. And so my heart goes out to you and your family. And I remember when I heard about it, about his passing. So yeah, and my dad's been gone for a long time, and I'm not going to get into talking about my dad because then I'm just going to start crying because this has been a really tough past few days. We had the 20th anniversary on Saturday, and just I think a lot of people were in a situation where I was, where it's what everybody was talking about for the last few days. And it's just, my hearts go out to all of these families. You know, it's been 20 years for them. And I think we really need to me, it really hammered home again that we really need to make sure that we're doing everything we can for our first responders, because everything I kept hearing and everything that we hear is that as people were running out of the buildings, they were running in. You know, there's a scary situation, people are terrified, they're running out, and the police or the firefighters, like, these are the guys and the women, and they are running in. And we need to do everything we can to support them. The other day I was on Gardenia, and there was a Birmingham fire truck flying down the street, and kudos to everyone who did what you're supposed to do and pulled over. But I thought, with all the construction, where are they going? You know, and obviously they were coming to help us or to help Warren or something, and because we have a really good relationship with the different communities, and I thought that's why Birmingham is over here in our part of the metro. I got this the other day from Farmington Hills. It's a thank you. You know, we do all these proclamations. This is a proclamation from Farmington Hills. It's going to go to Corey Almus, our DPS director. I got a copy of this, though, because they had a state of emergency back in July when they had power outages, and they needed help, and our DPS went to help them. So, I mean, that's great. We need to have these good relationships with our neighboring cities, because we need to know that when we need help, they're going to help us just like we're going to help them. With respect to the whole affordable housing, we do need affordable housing. I hear from people all the time that, you know, something's happening and their landlord is selling their unit or their home or something, and they need to find somewhere else to go, and they have this, you know, they have this need. We do have residents who have the need. I have been talking with different developers who want to build in the city, and they want to make sure that it is affordable. So we definitely we do have the need, and this is one of the things that Councilman Bliss and I have been working on with the Planning Commission, is making sure that, you know, some of our ordinances that need to be revised to bring in some of these new housings can come in. So we are working on it, and I think there was a question at one point, it might have been Councilor Rohrbach, I can't remember now, who said, why would this go through planning? This affordable housing, this section 8, what's it called here? The source of income housing. The reason it would go through planning is that that's a lot of what we're looking at, is the different kinds of housing and those types of things. So it's really just a matter of staying with what we're looking at. I like the idea of, I really think that people need to get educated on this. If we can figure out a way to explain this to landlords, what the benefits are, I think it's the kind of thing where if enough landlords are saying, yes, it's a great idea, I want to do it, then we don't have to say to the ones who don't, well, there is some kind of penalty or there is something, because I do think that we need to recognize that we've got to be careful when we tell people what they can and can't do. You know, they may say, fine, I'm just going to leave the unit empty, and then no one's living there. And I do know of empty rental houses for a variety of reasons. You know, the landlord isn't renting out. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has reached out to me in the last week to wish me a happy new year. It was Rosh Hashanah last week. This week is Yom Kippur. They are the high holidays in the Jewish calendar. And to Ms. Covert's point, she is stepping down off of this. And I don't know exactly what the makeup of the group is. She rattled off really quick, so I'm sorry. I didn't catch everything you said, but I think we have a lot of diversity in the city. And if I'm correct, no offense, Ms. Covert, but I think that you are one of the older members, and the oldest, okay. And so it just really, it drops the age down, not drops it, but it brings the age down. And it's something that, I'm 51. Listen, I'm in circles, I'm considered a senior because I'm over 50, but it's just, we have a demographic that we're very diverse, and we need to make sure, you know, that's what this group, in my mind, when this group came about, that they're representative. And in the last year, we've had 4 members leave. We had 3, and tonight looks like we have a 4th. 2 of them were Jewish, and one of them, I believe, was a homosexual. And, if we're looking at having diversity, we need to make sure that everyone is being representative. I don't think that there's any Muslims. I don't think there's any Jews left on there. I don't know that there's anyone on there who has any kind of disability. And I could be wrong. They could be on there, and I just don't know about it. But I really think that we need to make sure that if this group is going to represent the diversity that I thought they were going to be representing, and when we created this last year, that if they don't have the members on there who do represent that, they really need to be doing outreach to the different groups. We've got the Islamic Community Center here, we've got the Chinese Cultural Center here, we have the Mexican Consulate, we've got the Chabad over in Royal Oak, so we've got enough places that they can reach out to. So my final thought is, what Mr. Bliss said about doing something kind. With everything going on with 9/11, it's also one of the things that I kept hearing as well, is that the best way that we can honor anybody's memory is to do something kind for someone. And for those in the room who are missing their dads, because everyone's talking about their dads that we lost, things will happen, and I'm sure, everyone feels this, something will happen, and I'll say, that was from my dad. Something will happen, I'll be like, that was from my dad. He's the one who taught me that. That's how come I know that. Or I'll see something, they'll be like, oh, my dad would love this. And that doesn't go away. It's been a long time for me, Mr. Gettings, it's been 60 years for you, and I expect that, it doesn't go away. So do something kind for someone, and we will see everybody back here in 2 weeks on September 27th. The time is now 9:16. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Good night.